Welcome everybody here to Old Town Coffee and Chocolates. Brian has just published his third sequel to Search for Truth, The Journey into the Abyss. And it's the third in a series of books that try to have a theme of accountability, truth, and humanism. Because we have to, especially in today's day, we have to be really human with one another right now in the kindest possible way we can. And this book today, it starts in Humboldt, and a kidnapping happens right to Jerusalem. So with those words said, go for it, Bri.
All right, well, each of my books kind of deals with a different subject, and just like any author or artist, I use it just as a way to put my voice out there. First book dealt with illegal immigration, insider trading. The second one dealt with water issues and desalination, and this one deals with private armies and militias and is in Jerusalem. And it being Veterans Day, I thought, what a better day to do it when it kind of deals with that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just about following synchronicities and doing the right thing because it's the right thing, and just moving forward with that. And that's kind of my goal in my everyday life. And the writing is just such stream of consciousness, and seems to flow so easily that I know I'm on the right path. So we just go ahead and start. So I'm going to start here basically as the prologue to the book. Jason and Christina, who are my main characters, are just waking up, and Jason is telling her about a dream he had last night. So here we go. Overpriced private soldiers and undersatiated militias battled pink and orange sunrises for control of Jason's mind as it searched for a thought he could cling to. His mind never fired quickly when he woke up, half in reality and half stuck in the dream world where his days usually started. This was no ordinary mind-racing marathon the average insomniac put themselves through. It was a feeling stronger than 1,000 men, or maybe 2,000, depending on how long Jason obsessed about it. The only thought that stuck as he flung the 500 thread count sheets off of his listless body was how strong he was going to make the morning coffee. You think he could have tossed and turned any more last night? Felt like I was sleeping with a soccer player, Christina artfully described. She knew Jason always appreciated a good sports metaphor. Soccer isn't a real sport. Now, if you would have said I was sleeping like a running back streaking towards the end zone, that's a reference I could get behind. Jason wasn't as big a sports fan like when he was younger. The fact that his 30-something body was having aches and pains like never before caused him to think more critically about his activities. However, before he could express words of gratitude to the wide hazel eyes that shot an always loving salvo across his bow, he leaned over and kissed the lips that never dreamed of touching lipstick. "What was that for?" Christina inquired lovingly as she gently rubbed Jason's back. "When did I ever need a reason to kiss you?" Jason cajoled. "It was easier than expressing the undying love my soul has for your soul. You've never been a sports fan, but I wanted to show my appreciation for your attempt to organize your thoughts in a way I could understand." The pink and orange sunrise Jason remembered from his dream was now staring him in the face as he walked up to the oversized front window. He and Christina's rebel roost in the hills of Humboldt country featured a view that would allow many to die happy. The house was a bit bigger than the apartment they left behind when Jason went his way and Christina went hers but now they had a home base they could grow and evolve from. The aroma and loud dripping from the fresh ground coffee roused Christina from the sleep she fell back into. She was so tired from the Netflix marathon the night before that she didn't want to get out of bed. Once she smelled the heavenly scent that Juan Valdez himself would have been proud of, she joined Jason by the front window to take in the view. It's an amazing day, not a cloud in the sky. Should we go to the river? It looked healthy again from all the rains, especially with that revolutionary pipeline we helped push through. The drought has lessened dramatically because of it. Christina was restless ever since she and Jason made their way back from Cuba. Their trip wasn't nearly as dangerous as escaping drones and missiles on their way to Detroit, but an adventure nonetheless. That pipeline is pretty amazing. Water rates have plummeted since it came online. We have to make sure people don't get complacent and waste water. That's a much easier problem to deal with. I wonder what my dad is up to. Marty Jackson disappeared into the ether just as Jay Sherman did. Even their respective kids admitted a soul-pulling need to follow their own path. Jay and Marty might not have been brothers, but they had much in common. It made cosmic sense that their kids ended up finding each other. Did you just say your dad? You haven't used that word in a long time, since you were working with him, I think. Hopefully he didn't find his way back to the entities. I know he had a thing for my mom, admitted Christina with an apprehensive need to control her every word. With that guy, who knows? My mind has been going bonkers from my dream that was so vivid I felt like I was really there. We always feel like that when we're in our dreams. I remember every detail. Militias fought these private armies, and then other random groups would jump out of the woodworks, fighting and supporting different sides. You never knew who to trust. Sounds like a great movie. It would have been if I was watching it on a screen and not been right in the middle of it. Everybody was fighting everybody for control over territory, goods, wealth, and resource production. Then it showed me images of the pipeline, and then back to the fighting again. Then there were piles of bodies everywhere, covering every inch of the ground. They disappeared, then more people showed up, and the fighting continued. Then more bodies, and they disappeared, etc. Almost like a video game, where you lose your life and then respawn back into the war. Jason spoke a million miles a minute, which was unusual given caffeine hadn't entered his bloodstream yet. That does sound like a video game, which is strange because you're not a gamer. Anyway, what happened next? Christina knew this dream and its analysis from the love of her life was building to something. She knew where this energy led them in the past, which made her nervously excited. Maybe it meant ending their one-year absence from being the establishment's worst nightmare. The coffee finished brewing before Jason finished the thought he was preparing for Christina, so he grabbed the biggest and most brightly colored mugs out of their mahogany-stained cabinets. He proceeded to fill them with the jet black coffee that he always made way too strong. However, if their purpose was to wake up and get on with their day, then strong and to the point was where they needed to be. He grabbed the steaming mugs and motioned for Christina to join him at the 6-person redwood table that was constructed by a neighbor. Jason offered to pay him, but the guy said it was his pleasure, and that Jason would do the same for him if given the chance. This was weird, considering Jason could barely nail 2 boards together, but the sentiment was there. It was an amazing gift, so he graciously accepted, even though he expected a favor request to appear out of thin air somewhere down the line. Did you make your famous racehorse coffee again? You know, the kind that makes you run around the house 10 times and race to the bathroom? Christina sniped as she sat down next to the only person who could make her truly smile. Definitely. I needed something to wake up my brain so I could analyze my dream from last night. It's been a while since we've been in a game, and for my own peace of mind, I need to find out if this leads somewhere we need to go, like the water park or the postcard. Since nothing was slipped under our door this morning, and the phone hasn't rang since yesterday, I need to hypothesize what it means. I didn't tell you what stopped the fighting in my dream, did I? Jason thought. He sipped the rocket fuel that powered not only his mind, but his body to move towards his intended destination. No, you didn't. You just went off on one of your tangents again. Since the philosophical and intellectual place your mind goes is one of the most attractive things about you, I let you do your thing. Christina joined Jason on one of the wooden chairs surrounding their table, which reflected the disappearing color of the sunrise. After the fighters died and respawned, it seemed like 100 times, I thought it would never end. It was when this thought entered my head that it caused a beautiful pink and orange sunrise to shine off all the warriors' faces. They put down their guns and knives, unattached their hands from the throats of their enemies, and stared at the sky. Not only was it weird that the fighting suddenly stopped, but it was the middle of the day when the colors showed up. I knew this was a sunrise from having watched them when I woke up early enough. Anyway, after thousands of men and women looked at the sky for what seemed like an eternity, they gave each other hugs, handshakes, and friendly glances, acting like they'd been friends the whole time. Then they returned to their vehicles parked just over a ridge in a parking lot. That's the end of the first section I have. So I'll go on to the next one here. So Marty, who is Jason's dad, is at a Mossad base in Jerusalem, being introduced to the local Mossad boss, if you will.
What's a Mossad?
Mossad is the kind of the Israeli CIA. basically. Alright. Kronos has been really biting my butt, Marty muttered to himself. Peering into the eyes of another bullet-ridden body of an unknown enemy, he wondered, was this what his life had become? Was his only purpose to fend off whomever was coming out of the woods to do whatever their sardonic minds could dream up? I don't know where time has gone either, related David. A 40-year-old Mossad agent with something to prove. One day I'm running drills, next thing I know I'm deployed to a firefight in Jerusalem to protect some American. I'm not just some American. Any of my countless enemies would tell you that. Until this point, Marty's purpose was to make his life as good as possible. With his critically thinking mind, he believed the more money he accrued toward the furtherance of evolution, the more love he could inject into the system. Marty believed money could help bring love. Whether love came first, Marty never really given the concept much thought since Christina's mom broke his heart all those years ago. You might have a lot of enemies, but you have many more friends. Just like anybody whose heart was in the right place. 90% of the time anyway, ridiculed David. He only knew Marty for the few months since the firefight, but understood right away that he held a deeper purpose. What about the other 10%? I'm sure your special visitors will answer that question forthwith. The old city of Jerusalem had endured thousands and thousands of years of wars and ethnic cleansing, followed by brief periods of hopeful peace. This was usually followed by somebody being assassinated by a member of that person's own religious group who thought they went too far by even negotiating treaties. These treaties were a huge step forward, but still didn't go nearly as far as they needed to. If people want to live in peace, justice, and equality, mutual respect and compromise are imperative. Keeping the balance was exactly why Marty found himself in the basement bunker of a Jerusalem Mossad base. His roots were one reason he could call this place home and was hoping Jason could too. This place is pretty well stocked with weapons, Marty exclaimed. He looked around the conference table he and 8 other men were sitting around and noticed women were guarding all entrances and exits, as well as the arsenal Marty knew could start something major. It's got to be well stocked. We never know when some Palestinian terror group will attack. There's a base 10 miles from here. We've been trying to infiltrate it so we can rot them from the inside, barked Rebecca, a 35-year-old Mossad leader who held ultimate authority. Nobody turned away when she spoke, so Marty figured he better not either. I might be able to help with that, Marty injected to scowls of disbelief. To the Mossad, he was just one more American cowboy who thought world politics would bend to his will. What's your plan? Drop more bombs and kill more people? We all know you're good at killing, especially ex-presidents, right? Rebecca sarcastically inquired. Marty immediately went into a flashback. His eyes slowly traversed a very plain room, staring blankly into space. While the guards and everybody sitting around the solid oak table stared at him, wondering if he snapped, Marty remembered what brought him to Jerusalem. He left Jason, Christina, and Brian back in Detroit when they escaped the entity's hit squad, but only felt bad about Goose. He was the best man Marty ever knew. He realized they wouldn't have been able to escape without Goose's heroic last stand. Running through the woods in thick brush while bullets flew by his ears with his no longer estranged son and his consciousness-building crew made him understand what was really important. You okay, man? Somebody slip a Mickey into your coffee? bantered David, questioning Marty's emotional stability. I'm fine. Just thinking about why I came here. I thought seeing the old city would be good for my soul. Kind of the Jewish version of Malcolm X's Hajj to Mecca, Marty expressed genuinely. The other agents in this very clean and very institutional room were all thinking the same thing. Is this guy nuts? You're comparing yourself to Malcolm X? Are you saying that all Jews and Muslims are alike? Should we just get over the fact that we've been stupidly fighting for thousands of years? Fumed Rebecca. She didn't like her senior agent David bringing Marty here, but she trusted him, and not because they slept together, but because they both wanted a peaceful world. The fact that Muslims and Jews have many similarities is besides the point. I came here because I wanted to see where my people came from and see if it stirred anything up. Before I made it to the western wall to pray, I was stopped by a couple of gentlemen asking for directions. How would I know they were looking for a hostage opportunity? Marty blurted out because his life depended on it. To mentally prepare for Jason and Christina's arrival, he had to tell the Mossad something that wouldn't make them run for Chevy Chase in his funny farm. You didn't know every Palestinian militant group makes money off of hostages? They get their biggest paydays when they nab rich Americans. David was listening to his commanding officer and Marty go back and forth like a ping pong match. They were never worked out between them because she always demanded the last word and always needed to be right. After 5 minutes of white noise in the war-torn city, David spoke up because he knew they were at a stalemate. It was one of those scorchingly hot Sinai Desert days when I saw these guys getting in Marty's face. I'm sure they didn't brush their teeth, but their rotten breath wasn't the point. If we didn't happen to be there, Marty would have been mutilated worse than the last bunch of hopeful peacemakers. What's your point? Are you going off on one of your tangents again? Rebecca demanded. Her shoulder-length black curls whiffs ever so slightly from an office fan Marty insisted on. My point is, the firefight started before I got there. Don't forget, we fought off 20 men who appeared out of thin air near the Wailing Wall. Since when do Palestinians have sleeper cells that close to holy sites? Since your namesake was king of this land. Marty found one of the red velvet couches to be extremely comfortable for this quarrel between two jilted lovers. All he needed was some popcorn. Maybe they could have some waiting for Jason. Jason was bound to want some after getting kidnapped twice in 2 days, he thought. How about I fill in some plot holes? Marty offered a universal look, so here we go again. This seasoned group of agents might not have seen real action for a while, but wasn't that the point? Only fight when necessary because rescuing Marty was necessary. Or was it? Well, Einstein, we're waiting. You seem to know more than Israel's entire spy apparatus, barked the top lieutenant. He'd been with Rebecca for some time, defended her through the worst battles of the Second Intifada. He always had faith in her judgment, but was sick and tired of another American trying to tell him how it is. These Hamas guys, or whoever they were, demanded information about some American pipeline. Since my answers weren't coming quick enough, they got rough. They punched and kicked me until I collapsed on the ground in a once hopeful for change heap. I began thinking, was anybody out there watching? Did anybody care? That's when David's men rushed over to stop what they thought was a hostage taking. I don't blame them. They saw a rich white American getting hassled by gun-toting Arabs. They knew something was amiss, Marty expressed. He was trying to get a laugh from the group, trying to appeal to their generationally embedded racism towards Palestinians. Since none of them cracked a smile, maybe this was a new Mossad, he thought. Maybe they grew beyond their crap in the past and realized it was just that, crap. Stop trying to appeal to nativist beliefs you assume we have. You might not like that many of us believe all you Americans are the same, but it's the way you talk and carry yourselves. Don't take it out on us. We don't all think the same way. Not everybody is a racist. We weren't all taught in school to hate each other. Granted, that has happened, but not nearly as much as the media has claimed. Just because Sadat and Rabin were assassinated after signing peace treaties doesn't mean it'll happen again. The laser-focused eyes of Rebecca, the Mossad leader, made Marty realize he better watch his back. When one was in the old city, one always had to watch his back, he thought. That's my second section, and so I don't know what you think. One more? Okay. So this will be the last one I'll read here. Jason and Christina have now arrived at that same Mossad base, and they're kind of sitting around a table with Marty and David. Maybe I could throw my 2 cents in, David queried, winking from new understanding. By all means, Christina answered. She wanted to be a facilitator of progress like Marty, just less murderous. Being the only actual Mossad at this table, expressed David, while the rest of the group gave him a no shit look. I can admire you for wanting to come here to see how we construct our pipelines, but the last thing we need is more people gunning for us. Do you think you have enemies behind every tree? Try being surrounded by Arab countries on all sides, wondering when they'll finally build a rocket powerful enough to flatten a city. They teach their kids in school, or should I say, train their kids in school to hate, kill, and destroy. Don't you guys teach the same thing to your kids? Jason deduced. Christina felt uneasy about Jason challenging a guy who spends all day fighting terrorists. From the passionate for change look he gave her, however, she smiled, because the man she loved humanity even more. Some of our kids are taught to hate, sure. What are you supposed to do when people are constantly advocating your destruction? I'm trying to make sure never again is really never again, David bellowed, wondering who this punk kid thought he was. Are you somebody who thinks they can change things? You think you can chart a new course for a multi-generational fight that will continue long after we're gone? Maybe. I want to do something. I mean, how are we any better? We teach our kids the same thing they teach their kids. Doesn't that make us just as bad? No. When was the last time you met a Jewish suicide bomber? Never. Well, then I suggest you shut up when you don't know what you're talking about. Marty had the uneasy feeling as when Jason lured President Bowman into a trap. He hoped he wouldn't have to mete out the same outcome on David, but because Marty was really starting to like him. Besides, how would he, Jason, and Christina escape from somewhere in the desert surrounding Jerusalem? Jason gave Marty a look that said, "Let me handle this. I've been preparing for it my whole life." This passion was revealed when Marty first met Jason, and something that constantly proved itself in real time. Christina grabbed Jason's arm and said, "I'm scared. Don't let this guy bury us in the desert." He let her know with a loving glance that this was but one more step into the unknown. Not quite an abyss, but something close. I'll have you know, I actually do know what I'm talking about. When I went to Hebrew school in America, we were taught that Arabs and Palestinians were evil. I was there. I know what I was told. Afterwards, I realized that people are different because we're all unique. You can't generalize about anybody we meet. You can't think any group believes monolithically, Jason happily revealed without a second thought. Jason marinated over the words emanating from Jason's mind. He started thinking about how Jews were generalized. When one group proves over and over they're a certain way, you have to expect the worst and prepare for whatever happens. While that's true, it's also not true. Have you met every single person in the world that belongs to any group? Unless you have, you don't know what you're talking about. Aren't unfounded theories why people call the Jews liars and schemers who want to control everything? I've heard such things. Well, then you know how important it is to upend that paradigm. You know as well as I do, there isn't one group in the entire world that has been more persecuted than Jews. Nobody has been expelled more or cordoned off in more ghettos than them. Given that history, how can you sit there and advocate doing the same thing to others? Doesn't the Torah say that all people deserve to be free and that all people deserve to live their life without being put into an imaginary box? I put a few of them in not-so-imaginary boxes. I'm sure you have, or Marty wouldn't be here in your presence. What's that supposed to mean? Marty belted out because Jason was being the ungrateful bastard he always hoped he wasn't. All I mean is, you have dispatched people, David here has dispatched people. It makes sense you two have grown close because people connect with others who have similar personalities. Jason snapped back with intense focus, so Marty let him continue. All I'm saying is that I love the Jewish people because I'm one of them. I felt a strong connection to this land for as long as I can remember. It's been proven to me over and over again through all my experiences that not only are things rarely as they seem, they're usually something completely different. People have way more in common with each other than they think, and can agree on a lot more than they disagree on when they let all their bullshit fade away. This Israeli-Palestinian conflict is an extreme example of that, but you're a perceptive person. You know it's true. David leaned back in his chair and remembered his own upbringing. Were some of the things Jason said true? Was each group raised to hate each other instead of raised to love each other?
If you want to do another one, go ahead. What does everybody think? You want another one, or you want to have a discussion?
I got one more paragraph.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can read one more.
All right, read one more.
All right. So this one, Marty, Jason, and Christina go with David to meet his tech guy because they have uncovered this thumb drive. And so they're going to David's tech guy to decode it. And when they get there, they realize that it's Jason's long-lost friend, Aaron. I know that look. What did you find, man? Wondered David. Up until now, he'd been silent, letting the reunion commence. Aaron had been with him for a number of years and possessed the skill to do what needed to be done. Still, David had his doubts. Could Aaron be the key to the whole conflict, or at least provide a concrete path forward for all parties involved? It looks like some sort of list, Aaron explained as he glided the cursor around his screen. He received a wink and a snide smile from Jason before he spoke again. I know, my cursor is a joint. Isn't that cool? Anyway, This list looks like the GPS locations of military bases. Marty gulped hard. He knew Christina's mom built her power on the blood of peasants. It made sense she would have an army to invade, conquer, and defend territories. That is certainly interesting. When I was in my previous employment, Marty Coyley stated as Christina and Jason rolled their eyes simultaneously, "Don't look at me like you don't trust me. How many times have you lied to us in the past, or covered up some aspect of your true nature?" Jason bellowed. Who wouldn't constantly feel slighted if their father suddenly appeared after a long absence? Even though Marty had helped him, even though they hated his methods, Marty did have their back. As Christina gently rubbed Jason's shoulders to remind him of that, he calmed down and tried to specifically express what he wanted to say. When you were the enforcer for the very group that's causing all this, is that when you discovered their secret bases? Or maybe when you were friends with the president? Or maybe from your brother, the old man who took him down? From the ferocious velocity of Jason's verbal harangue, David's sinking feeling was instantaneous. He was hungry for change, which was good, because hunger created effective soldiers. Wait, so you're part of this organization? I was, well, not directly, Aaron interjected. He was half defending Marty, but only because he hadn't been fully honest with David either. What do you mean, not directly? Either you were or you weren't, David needled, knowing that truth was always deep in the middle of sludge. I spoke at some rallies and was involved with some causes I later found out they were funding. It's not like I was a card-carrying member, more of a friend of a friend thing, Aaron returned. Of course. They did turn on you when you tried speaking truth of power instead of the mile-high bullshit pile they always peddle. Jason was fired up to be back with his old buddy, his somewhat trustworthy but always loyal, estranged dad and the love of his life, who were all just as excited as he to discover what lie ahead. Thanks, bro, but you don't have to stand up for me. You described to the crowd how corrupt politicians say one thing and do another. How they love illegal immigrant labor because it can pay them next to nothing without fear of complaints. Office holders speak out of both sides of their mouth and hope people won't catch on. That's true. They pull fast ones over on people all the time. Jason walked over to where Aaron was sitting and opened his arms to give Aaron a hug. The old buddy hoisted himself off the chair and gave Jason the battery recharge he craved. This was the same concept as Jason and Christina's soul-reviving hugs and kisses, but the platonic version. You have the temperament and pragmatism that we need, that the United States needs. You should run for president, Jason joked, not thinking Aaron would take him seriously. They joked about it when they were younger, but never thought about it seriously. Money ruled politics back then and has only gotten infinitely worse since then. Still, the thought had crossed Aaron's mind. Well, Aaron trailed off. His jaw dropped even further as the code in front of him was now in plain English and didn't require a computer brain to read. Well, what? Do you need to take a crap, man? Jason cajoled. He was behind his buddy 110%, but always yearned to get a few good ones in at the same time. Like I was saying before, it's a list of secret bases in almost every country in the world. Some bases are small with maybe 100 soldiers. Some are much bigger installations with units as high as 30,000. My custom decryption software worked. You're welcome, by the way. Aaron winked as the rest of the group shook their heads because they wanted him to get on with it. It also lists some miscellaneous bases and some elite outposts based here in Jerusalem and elsewhere around the Middle East. Also these bases in the United States. David, you must have suspected. I'm not surprised that some string-pulling wannabe government has secret bases around a country they want to control, but damn, what can we do to stop them? Maybe they'll try to gain control of the pipeline again. Maybe they'll put another friendly in the White House. Jason speculated it at 1,000 miles an hour. Christina had been with him long enough to know that when his mind started going, there was no stopping it, only steering it. That's one of the things that made him so passionate for love, peace, and justice. Still, Christina worried about what it was doing to his health. Maybe it was just a caring part of her that wanted to take care of people. She always told herself that she wanted kids, and she wouldn't bring that up to Jason now, but she knew it was a subject she needed to breach at a future date. For now, she needed to make sure the next step into the abyss wasn't a leap. Maybe it was like the Ides of March, something that people thought was scary, which ended up simply being a sign of changes ahead, a path into the unknown that couldn't be deciphered until one was walking along it. My mom always did like to control things. What do you mean, your mom? David demanded. He needed assurance the people he was backing up were on the up and up. As an officer in the world's most formidable spy agency, he'd go anywhere and do anything to protect the Jewish people, along with all others who he felt were oppressed. His higher-ups knew his passion for the cause was embedded in his personality,